Moon Knight, which starred Oscar Isaac as the title character, was praised for how it showed the dissociative identity disorder, or DID, and how it used Egyptian culture and elements, and how well its very talented cast performed. Each actor's performance helped to make Moon Knight a better and more realistic addition to the MCU's library. As we wait for news about a possible second season, let's take a look at some interesting things you might not have known about the cast of Moon Knight. This and more in today's video. Oscar Isaac was expelled from school in the 7th grade. May Calloway's father discouraged her from acting, and Khalid Abdallah is one of the founding members of the Mawzareen Collective in Cairo. Oscar Isaac plays Mark Spector, Moon Knight, in the lead role, and he does it well, taking on all the character's traits and bringing his many personalities to life. Isaac is a famous actor who's been in a lot of movies and TV shows. Before he got his big break though, he had trouble following rules as a child. He was kicked out of school when he was young, and he told E! News, he said that this decision was made because of a long list of crimes. Layla Al-Fawli, Scarlet Scarab, is played by May Calloway in Moon Knight. She is Mark's wife and helps him with his superhero work. She does a great job in this role, and it's hard to picture Calloway in a different one. In her younger years, she decided to become an actress. She told her parents that she had applied to Emerson College after dropping out of industrial design. Her father wasn't sure about this choice and tried to talk her out of it. Things turned out well in the end. In Moon Knight, Khalid Abdallah plays Salim, the leader of the Anid Council and the personification of Osiris. In movies like The Kite Runner, Green Zone, and United 93, he had a very successful career. He's also a strong political activist and a very successful actor. He's one of the people who stated that the Mawzareen Collective in Cairo, and this group works to record and share images of how Egypt has changed over time. Ethan Hawke is a huge fan of Star Wars, and he is also a successful novelist. Gaspard Ulliel was made a Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters in France, and Oscar Isaac played in various punk bands in the 90s. In the movie Moon Knight, Ethan Hawke plays Arthur Harrow, a religious fanatic and cult leader who worships the Egyptian goddess Ammit, and Hawke has also had a very successful career, which has recently got a little bit better. He has said in a very public way that he likes the Star Wars movies. According to Game Rant, he has even tried to get a part in one of them. He hasn't gotten this part yet, but we'd be curious to see what he could bring to the franchise. Hawke is a good actor who's been in a lot of movies and plays. He's been nominated for an Academy Award 4 times. He has done very well in the film and the entertainment business, and he has also done well as a novelist. He has written 3 novels and a graphic novel so far, all of which have been well received, and he will probably write more in the future. Gaspard Ulliel is a French actor who became well known through his work in French films with directors like Javier Dolan in the biopic Saint Laurent. In Moon Knight, he plays Anton Mogart, and he is just as good at this role. In France, he was given the title of Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters, which is something that most people will never get to do. Isaac has had a very successful acting career, but in the 1990s, he also played in punk bands with the names like The Worms, Closet Heterosexuals, Petrified Frogs, and The Underdogs. One of these groups opened for Green Day, and you can find videos of them online. Moving on to related news, Moon Knight explains the mystery behind superhero resurrections. In comic books, it's a running joke that nobody stays dead, but Moon Knight has shown that the rules for coming back from the dead are much more complicated than many fans thought they might be. Moon Knight's back from the dead is a big part of his origin story, in which he is brought back to life to serve the angry god Khonshu. Now, as the Sorcerer Supreme looks for answers, Mark Spector finds out that his death was really different from everyone else's. It's pretty much a given that any comic book character who dies will come back to life in some way. Writers love to surprise their readers by bringing back the dead, but for each character there are different hoops that have to be jumped through to make that happen. For example, Magneto killed Scarlet Witch and she came back almost right away, wiser and stronger. On the other hand, Nightcrawler was dead for years before he was rescued from heaven, which left him with a lot of spiritual angst that was hard for him to deal with. The piano player, a popular superhero on Earth, was brought back to life, while Wolverine has to fight the Angel of Death for his soul every time his healing factor brings him back to life. Moon Knight's character is built around resurrection, so he's come back from the dead more than once with little fuss. But what's true for one hero isn't always true for another, which makes Doctor Strange's resurrection much more complicated and important. Clea's quest to bring Doctor Strange back must go on, and Moon Knight now knows that even though it's easy for him, Marvel's cosmic forces still make it hard for other people to come back to life. Next, Moon Knight gets a new kaiju form. The first of Khonshu Moon Knight is a person with many different sides. He sometimes fights crime as Mark Spector, who used to be a mercenary. As the business mogul Stephen Grant, he sometimes makes big business deals. Sometimes he's a taxi driver named Jake Lockley, and he drives around and keeps an eye on the criminal underworld. But in Jodie Hauser, Ibram Robertson, and Eric Arceniega's Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight changes into a giant kaiju. Moon Knight is already a weird character, but even die-hard fans of the Arrow have to admit that Moon Knight turning into a kaiju is a bit of a surprise. This idea is backed up by the fact that Moon Knight's new kaiju forms look almost exactly like the Khonshu from the MCU TV show. When Ms. Marvel asked Moon Knight about his run-in with the robot rats the night before, they worked together to find out more about the problem and end up fighting robot rats all over the streets of New York. At one point, they meet Hunter's Moon, another first of the Khonshu that the beasts have also been after. As the three talk, the rats come together to form a huge robot with an impenetrable shield. Under the full moon, Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon glow and combine their powers to become a giant Khonshu, which easily defeats the robot. Moon Knight has shown many different kinds of powers in the past, but this kaiju form is a whole new thing. He doesn't usually work with other characters, probably because he has more than one personality. However, this comic shows that when Moon Knight works with one other of the Khonshu's avatars, he can become even stronger. At the end of the issue, Ms. Marvel leaves to find the person who made the rat robots. In Ms. Marvel's team-up series, Moon Knight says, "I would very much like to know who is behind this. You know where to find me." As these events come to a head, we hope Moon Knight, Hunter's Moon, and their kaiju Khonshu form come back to settle the score. Finally, Moon Knight will never be Marvel's Batman. Moon Knight is often called Marvel's Batman, but Mark Spector's most recent adventure shows that he will never be the Dark Knight. He can thank Doctor Strange's wife for this realization. In Strange number 5, which was written by Jed MacKay and drawn by Marcelo Ferreira, Doctor Strange's wife Clea goes on a work night with Moon Knight and asks him how he keeps coming back from the dead so often. Moon Knight says he doesn't have any control over it, and Khonshu brings him back. To show, he tries to scare off a criminal on his own, but it doesn't do so well. "You are foolish not to fear the Moon Knight kidnapper," Clea tells the kidnapper. At this point, Clea uses all of her magic to attack the kidnapper, showing him the horrors of the dark dimension, while Moon Knight can only watch from a distance. Moon Knight can't scare bad guys like Clea or Batman can. Batman's real strength comes from what he doesn't do. He doesn't kill his enemies. Strangely, this makes criminals even more afraid of the Dark Knight because they know he won't kill anyone, but will instead break as many of their bones as he thinks is necessary. Moon Knight doesn't have a rule against killing, but since he doesn't have any limits, he's not as scary as Batman. Criminals told stories as if Batman had powers about what he did, even though he doesn't. Moon Knight doesn't make people make up stories like that. Unfortunately, guys, that's all the time we had for today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Till next time, cheers.